I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to go in there with the plan to learn, be authentic, be open, right? And learn, have empathy and learn.
Hello, Coach Colin. Thank you so much for being on my YouTube channel today.
Hey, Katie, thank you for having me. And I hope that together we have a great podcast that gives the audience a lot of new information and a lot of real information about our topic, diversity, inclusion, discrimination, and whatnot.
Yeah. When I saw your post on the Facebook group about this, I was like, yes, I need to learn about this. I'm really passionate to learn. I've had some other really wonderful conversations on my channel with a lovely lady, Miss Andrea. We've talked about, like, she gave her experiences about growing up Black in the 1970s, going into history because she's a homeschool teacher, about the slave Bible, just all these things
Right.
I didn't know about. And it's like, this is so important to have these conversations and just put awareness out there.
Yeah, a lot of people have been woken up, awakened ever since 2020 with George Floyd, and seeing what happened on video, which lives forever. And in the first 6 months, a lot of us who were in the field really felt like a lot of organizations, a lot of non-Black people were asking questions and getting involved because it was a trend. And they'd always say, I never knew this was going on. And my response was, well, I'm quite sure everybody told you it was, everybody Black told you what was going on, but you didn't believe the person who had told you what was going on. So it's not that they didn't know, they just didn't take it in. But when you see it, you can't unsee it. But I'll tell you what surprises me and also makes me very, very happy. The trend has not slowed down. If anything, it's been picking up. There are more people asking me to come to the organization or to the MBA program and train them on diversity and inclusion. There are more individuals, and this is even deeper, more individuals who are coming to me and saying, can you give me some cultural training? And that's important because at an organization level, you may have one CEO, one person say, you know what, we need to do this. And that flows down. But when you have an individual who says, I myself, I want to have some diversity coaching. I want to have some intercultural coaching. That is that individual person saying, I want to learn more, do better, and hopefully become an ally. So I think what we've seen is a trend that I hope continues. And for as long as people are wanting it, I'm going to be here to provide that service.
That's great. So what are some examples of this training?
So I do more informational training, and informational training is more, I go into an organization and I share with them what diversity, inclusion, equity is all about. I give them examples on some unconscious biases people may have. And one of the best ways to show that is giving HR and hiring examples. I also go into MBA programs and give the MBA students a 2-day workshop on the same thing. What is diversity and inclusion? Why is it important to organizations? And it's important to organizations because one reason, a more diverse, inclusive team, you have better ideas, you get work done faster. So it's more of a way to have an advantage over your competition. So to give an example, and one of the best examples of what I would say is discrimination in an environment is where you have what we call biases. And there's some biases where if I'm in HR and I'm going to hire, the first thing I want to do is I want to hire somebody who I think is a good fit. And I'm going to look at the environment we have already. If that environment is already non-diverse, meaning you have more, let's say, Caucasian people in that environment, maybe you have more men in that environment, I want to maintain harmony. So when I'm hiring, I'm going to try and hire people who look like me and have that same experience. Maybe they went to the same college as me, maybe they're in the same fraternity as me, maybe in the same sorority as me. So we call this sort of the affinity bias. We want people that we can affinitize towards. What it also says is, with the person who's hiring, a lot of times what happens is, if you get a resume from Brandon, Jacob, Paul, versus getting a resume from Lamont, Rayshawn, a clearly more Black name, odds are there's going to be a different way you interpret those resumes. If the resume is from Brandon, Jacob, Paul, you're looking for things in the resume that you can what? That you can feel that you have a likeness towards. When you're looking at the one from Jamal, Abdul, a more Black name, subconsciously, you're looking at it for reasons to strike them out. Oh, they went to a poor school, or they didn't do this, they didn't do that, as opposed to what they have done. And there was a study that was concluded where they took a number of resumes, took the names off, and had different HR managers go through and rank the resumes. They then had another set of managers do the same thing with names on. And what you saw across the board were the resumes that had more, I'm going to say, urban names. They were all ranked lower, comparison. And this is not news. This is not news. So this is one example of how hiring practices really impact the diversity of an organization. It's important because the only way to get into an organization is through hiring.
That's so frustrating. It's like, you're like, it's not new. And I'm like, darn it. So how can we become allies?
Well, okay, so the question, how can people become allies? I think the first thing is you have to look at your own environment. And what I mean by that is, first ask yourself, what does it mean for you to be an ally? Does that mean that when you see poor behavior or something that's not right, you take action versus walking and tweeting about it later? Are you going to help that person when you see something that's not correct? For example, if you're walking down the street and you see somebody push an Asian American, are you going to hold your phone up, or are you going to intervene and try to help? So when you say being an ally, and some people think being an ally is recording and posting it. I'm not sure if being an ally, that might be an opportunist, but at the same time, if nobody recorded George Floyd, we'd be where we were before. But I think an ally is being more proactive. Is saying, I'm going to try and stop this and make sure that I take steps to make it not happen again. So the first thing is understand what's the golden reason you want to be an ally. And then what steps can you start taking to start understanding other cultures? Now, what some people would do, and I'll put myself in the role of a white gentleman, what some guys may do, they may go to their Black friend, who is usually their coworker on a sports team with, and say, hey man, what's going on? I didn't believe it. Da, 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 da. And that might not be the way to do it. The best way to do it is first go to your friend and say, look, here's my thoughts. I want to learn more about what's taking place because of A, B, and C. And I must be prepared. I must be prepared for the actuality that the person I'm talking to may have some aggression or may not accept what I'm trying to do immediately. Because again, being Black in the US, we've been banging the horn for a long time. So now, because there's this thing that is real called white guilt, because a lot of people are feeling guilty, it's not a person of color's responsibility to make you feel better. So initially, you may get it may be hard for you to take. And you may think, well, all they're trying to do is put the blame back on me. But there's years and generations of frustration in that person. So you must be prepared to go there, explain honestly and openly why you want to understand, let them know you want to be an ally, and ask them, how can I be an ally? Let them tell you what you can do, because you want to gain the trust of that person first. And once you have their trust and you start to understand a little better, then you can try and widen it out. Of course, you can also go to certain, what I would call, I would say minority-based service programs and volunteer and understand. But again, volunteering doesn't help you really understand what's taking place, the issues. And one of the best places to really start, not even becoming an ally, but start understanding is the work environment. And I'll tell you why. Right now, across not just in the US, there are certain things they say don't talk about at work, right? Politics, religion, and other things. And we all know, we talk about politics at work. Well, before 2012, we talked about politics at work, not after 2012. Before that we did, because after that it was too divisive. Religion, maybe not so much at work. But one thing we don't talk about racial activity. We don't talk about, I remember the OJ thing. People talk about that more glorified, but people don't talk about what happened on TV, this black boy getting shot or this Hispanic boy getting abused or something like that. They don't talk about it at work. And there's no better place to have these conversations to understand than with your coworkers, the people who you spend time with, the people whom you have somewhat of a relationship with. Maybe you guys work together. You might not have social activities together, but you have a basis to start. And right now, one of the things I try to coach and teach the HR folks who I work with, that you have to have an environment that is inclusive where people can talk about these things. Because I'm gonna tell you what, Katie, if I don't talk about these things, if I'm black and I don't talk about my experience with my white coworkers at work, when I leave work, odds are I'm not spending time with anybody white. So you never get a chance to talk about these things. So the best place, one of the best places where you can talk about these things in a neutral, calm, open environment is the work environment. So organizations have to really embrace that and create an environment where people don't feel like there will be animosity and aggression at work, talking about diversity, discrimination, and whatnot.
It's like when you're at work, you're on the same team. You have the same objectives, and yeah, it just makes more. It does make more sense to put things out on the table. What's so frustrating is how people say, "Oh, that's politics." Like, no, a person's right to not feel afraid, to not feel marginalized. That's not politics. That's humans. I hate how people say, "Oh, that's politics," and I don't talk politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they tend to say that when the premise does not agree with them. And one thing I would say is to create that environment where people can talk about this, I do recommend having a diversity inclusion professional come there and help HR management create the environment, because things can go wrong very quickly. Again, the guilt, the aggression, if you're trying to explain things and people don't hear you, don't agree with you. If I'm sitting here saying to my frustration as a black man, and you say, you know what, that's politics, I'm gonna talk about it. That may create even bigger divide. So these are very sensitive things, but HR and organization must be open to creating that environment, and it does take some professional intervention.
Mhm. I used to be with a theater company, and we would sometimes do a thing where we would work with the professional who is leading the conversations, or lead the conversations ourselves, where we would use theater to kind of put up a mirror to show the scenarios, to be a springboard for discussion from there, of instead of saying what's wrong with white people, saying what was wrong with this character, or what was wrong with this character, how could they work together.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that would be a very creative way to do that. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I tell people, because a lot, again, I coach people of color and people of non-color, if that's a term, people of non-color, but everybody has a color, right? But I coach them on how to have that conversation.
Mm.
And one of the things I make sure that is very clear is that in order to have the conversation, you must be authentic. You must come from a place where you want to solve problems and not just complain, complain, complain. So, for example, if we talk about what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, he was a young man who was jogging in a neighborhood in North Carolina and got shot. Instead of saying all white people are bad or all white people in North Carolina are bad, say these two individuals were bad. So you're not blaming the entire spectrum, you're blaming the individuals who had bad behavior. That's very, very important, because if I come to you and say all white people are racist, I lose you because I think you're racist also. But if I say these two individuals had some very racist activities, or I even say they're racist, I'm not talking about them and not all white people, which includes you. So it's a very, very different way of coming to have a conversation.
Yeah, and that's the last thing you want to do, is lose people before you've even started, because you just put them in a box.
Yeah, and it's hard to get out the box once you can put in the box.
How can we grow an awareness of how our worldview affects how we see others?
I think it's more of trying to put ourselves in the worldview of other people instead of looking at my actions or my thoughts impact other people. Understand what are their thoughts, because I think that's more powerful. Because if you think about it, I am one person trying to show people my thoughts, feelings, insights, as opposed to me trying to understand the thoughts and feelings and insights of a diverse set of people. And the more people who I can meet intellectually like that and be mindful of, the more I'm learning. So one of the things I try to make sure that I do, I live here in Shanghai, China, and Shanghai, China is one of the most culturally, racially diverse cities in the world. I've met more people from Europe, from Africa, from the US, from all over the world here. And I make sure that my pool of people, of colleagues, of friends, people who I associate with, is very, 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 very diverse. Now, I think this comes from starting out in a corporate American environment in the US. In a corporate American environment, from the moment I graduated college through when I left the US, I was always, no matter what, only one of two blacks in the room.
Hmm.
Always. Even here in China working. So one thing I made it a point to do is always put myself in a more diverse environment because I was tired of being the only in the group. So now I make sure that I'm one of in the group, not the only. I'm one of in the group. So I think trying to make sure that you have a very, very diverse social environment really works wonders because I can tell you what you read in the newspaper, what you watch on TV, I don't know how accurate that is. But the stories I hear from my friends about their experiences, whom I trust, I know that's true because the stories I tell them about my life, good and bad, are authentic and true. So having that cultural diverse group of friends I spend time with and professionals I work with, it goes so far to help calm things down and we can look at people for who they are and not their color or the background, the country of origin.
Yeah, that is so true that hearing people, you can in trusting them, you get the perspective that the news has their angles and governments and money makers have their angles, but people can just tell you, hey, this is what I've lived through. The more we open ourselves up to what people have lived through, the more we can grow in compassion for them.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm learning compassion is the key. Compassion and gratitude.
Hey, Coach Colin, how can we have uncomfortable conversations? What are some tips for that?
So it's hard to really grow in your comfort zone. So the whole thing about having comfort being intimidating, the first thing you should do is get that out of your mind. Comfort, I'm sorry, being uncomfortable should not be intimidating. Being uncomfortable should be comfortable. That's the first thing. So having conversations that are uncomfortable, ask yourself, uncomfortable for who? Uncomfortable for you or the person you're talking to? And it could be both. It could be one person, right? But first of all, uncomfortable for who? And say, what is it about this conversation that makes me uncomfortable? And then saying, you know what, that may be a saboteur. Forget the saboteur, trying to tell me it's uncomfortable. I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to go in there with the plan to learn, be authentic, be open, right? And learn, have empathy and learn. And if you approach it like that, odds are the person you're talking with, they will be aware of you're uncomfortable and they will hold your hand and pull you through the conversation. And over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of people who have come to me. I could tell they're very uncomfortable to ask questions about certain things. And I say, Colin, I didn't know about this. So if I go back a year, after the George Floyd things, I had a lot of people who are not Black who reached out to me and want to have a conversation. At that time, it might not have been the best time because I was still pissed off, quite frankly. So I did not have my sage, my coach, my trainer hat on. I had my pissed off Black man hat on. But they came to me, I could tell two things. They were very, very nervous, very, very nervous. And two, they were very, very much wanting to learn. And I was somewhat, the reason I didn't react badly was because I knew them coming to me meant that they trusted me and they felt that I would hold their hand and walk through the conversation. So
When you talked about having the pissed off Black guy hat on, that just made me think about how stinking necessary it is to let people just have their feelings. like to not try to talk them out of them, or try to give perspective about why, like things are getting, like you can't always give people a silver lining. There are things worth being angry about. There are things worth being sad about.
Coach, I have to be very careful because I have to have a no judgment zone. I must let my clients be themselves. And when I'm faced with a client who may be pissed off that day about something that's very practical to be pissed off about, one of the things I must do, I must let them get it out. But I also must let them know and coach them to understand that being upset, angry, happy, sad has nothing to do with the activity. It has to do with you. I'm old school. So my dad got upset, pissed off quickly. Imagine my dad, me doing the same thing all the time, and he gets mad every time. Imagine after a while, he just said, you know what? Well, I can't get upset if it happens every time. So just trying to find ways to not get upset due to the same input, because we have to rewire our muscles. And especially for Black men, Black people, because we're prone to have hypertension, the more upset we get, the more strain we put on our heart. And we suffer from a lot of heart disease. So we have to find ways to really react differently. And one thing that as a race now, due to the limitations of our incomes, a lot of people of my color don't spend time talking to psychiatrists. And that's one thing that I've learned that people really value and need, because they help. They help. So the thing about getting mad and saying, it'll be okay. Yes, I would say don't pander. Don't try to pat somebody back and say it'll be okay when they're in a mindset of despair. But understanding for the individual, you can come back from that. So I'll let my clients vent, vent, vent. But as a coach, because they're paying me to help them improve, as a coach, I must then help them to find different ways of going through the same scenario, but reacting differently.
Oh man, you have so much wisdom. I love it. There's toxic masculinity really has done a number on, like, swallow your feelings. Don't talk about it. Don't be a girl. Don't be a derogatory word for women's organs, just push through. And it's like, no, we want to break the chains, the generational curses that we're saying, like, this is what it means to be a man, and just have a heart attack and die super young because that's what happens. Like,
I'll tell you, I'll go one further. I'll go one further. Go cook,
yeah.
right? Wash the clothes. I think that, and we're seeing it a little differently for women, thank goodness, over the past few years. But women also face the same thing. The toxic masculinity, but I don't know if the same term would be for women.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of women are told, especially here in Asia, are told, do what your husband tells you. Are told, don't cause trouble, right? Are told, understand the woman's role. And you see how it eats away at who they are. And I've coached a lot of wives who are living lives that to them is toxic,
Totally.
because they're acting the way that their parents tell them to act, their husband's parents expect, and they have no life. And I'll tell you, the clients I have in India feel it much more than anywhere else, because in India, it is really part of the expected culture there. In China, you're seeing things, women being more empowered. In India, though, the amount of pressure that women get from, because a lot of times it's arranged marriages, first of all, arranged marriage. So a lot of times they're dealing with some really traditional values that go against who they want to be. It's like in your body, and you're a singer. You're singing in your body, in your mind, you feel like a singer, but they're forcing you to write books. So it's really, you call it toxic masculinity, but I think females feel it as well. It's just
absolutely.
people who are in environments where they don't feel that they can really be their authentic self.
So are you currently taking on more clients?
I'm always taking on clients. And luckily, I can say that I have a slight waiting list, only due to a lot of my clients now are outside of China, and due to time zone, there's more clashing on the availabilities. But I'm always taking clients. I'm taking on clients who are ready to be coached. A lot of people are not ready to be coached. They think they understand what it takes, but one of the things about being coached, you mentioned this earlier, you must get used to being uncomfortable. Reason being, if they're coming to me, they're coming to me because they want to reach a goal, they want to improve their lives. Odds are one thing, two things. They've either tried to do it before and were not able to reach the next step or go as far as they want to, or they don't know how to go. I don't know what to do, Coach Colin. Or Coach Colin, I tried these things and I just couldn't get it done. One of the things that we help people do then is to get past that uncomfortable feeling, embrace that uncomfortableness, because when you're uncomfortable and you embrace it, it no longer becomes a barrier. And you start thinking and innovate more ideas. Whereas before you said, well, I tried to do it this way, and you know what? I always do it this way. This is my personality. This is how I do it. If you're able to say, you know what? If you couldn't do it that way again, and you had to do it a different way, what would you do? And it makes it very uncomfortable because what do you mean? What would I do? I'd always do it the same way. I have no idea. Okay, let's brainstorm on some ideas. Doesn't matter whether or not they're good ideas or bad ideas, whether possible, let's just make a list. And that starts the process of thinking out the box and trying to say, you know what, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm now going forward and trying things.
So many times we as humans can just let ourselves off of the hook of ever changing because we say, this is just the way I am.
Way I am, right? It may be the way you are right now. I can't challenge that, but it doesn't have to be the way you are in the future. One of the differences between coaching and seeing a psychiatrist or a counselor, counselors want to spend time in the past, understanding how the past has impacted you. What is that thing that's making you feel a certain way? Let's go back and talk about that and help you get past that, which is very important if you have that. With a coach, we acknowledge the past, but our focus is 100% on the future. So if a client says, this is how I am, a psychiatrist might say, well, why are you like that? Let's explore that. Let's go deeper down. As a coach, I'll say, it might be who you are now, but question for you, in order for you to reach your dream, who must you become? And when we talk about that, who must you become? And then who you must become becomes bigger than who you are now. Despite the thunderstorm you're having in your head, despite the doubts you're having, despite that, how can we make sure we're going forward? And one of the best things about having a coach is we meet periodically and we always talk about your next steps, next steps, next steps. And if you fell down, if you stumbled, okay, what made you stumble? How do we avoid that in the future? So always our focus is helping you to keep going, keep the momentum going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Well, I will be sure and put all of your links and contact information down below in the comments section.
Great, thank you.
People can reach out to you and see if you guys would be a good fit.
And the best thing is we always have what we call a complimentary coaching session. And what we do in that session is we talk about what are your goals. I share my background, a little bit about your background, and we then look to see if we do have a connection. And let's be honest, it's hard to build rapport and connections in that first meeting, but you do get it. I'll tell you what you can find and feel. You can feel if the person is not a good fit. It may take longer to feel, okay, this is a good fit, but you can feel very quickly if it's not a good fit. So yeah, it does help you sort of weed out the people who are not ready for coaching. And for individuals, it helps weed out the coaches that might not be their style. But I do like to say that it's hard for a client who's never been coached to expect a certain style. If they're expecting a certain style, that may be a blocker also. That may be preventing them from going forward.
Yeah, I will just plug really briefly a thing that I'm doing in case you're sharing this video with your sphere of influence. I really want to help people to make their own YouTube channel and walk them through the process, especially if they're brand new to it, because so many people have wonderful stories to be told. And I want to, if they want an editor, I want to edit and help bring out their personality. You got to work together and be humble and willing to take constructive criticism and want to make it better.
Yeah, and I know that space very well, and I got to say it takes a lot of patience, especially when you have your idea of what may work, and a client has their idea of what might work, and you're trying to find a happy medium, and a client expects so much from you to take their thoughts and ideas and their vision and put it into video, and when they see it, it may not be what they want, and this and that, and somebody who has no experience can't really talk about how to do. So I commend you for your what you're doing there, because I know a lot of people now are trying to embrace these mediums to share with people their thoughts, their ideas, and their methods of living this life.
I also started a channel for YouTuber inspiration and perspective, not one of those grow your channel fast hacks crap a doodle do, but perspective that maybe they aren't going to get somewhere else, and encourage.
That's great.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but I've been to your site. I like the videos you have. This is my editing style. You have a funny style to it. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go?
The bad deed or the discrimination that you walk by and you don't take action to, that is what you believe in. And what I mean by that is if you're seeing somebody being treated differently because of their color, their sex, their age, their gender, and you walk right by and do nothing, that means you believe in that. That means it's okay to you. I would challenge you, the next time you see any form of discrimination, step in. Don't step in physically, but just be aware. Let them know that you're aware and observing, and you will see people act differently. That's one of the first steps in becoming not an ally, but becoming conscious and becoming proactive. If you're in a group with your friends and your friends have a negative comment about somebody and they say it's based on their age, gender, the color of the skin, say something. Say, hey man, that's not right. That's all you got to say. Now understand, once you stand up for these things, some of your friends might start to have problems with you being a champion. But again, you have to be uncomfortable. There's no way to be an ally. There's no way to be conscious without being uncomfortable. Embrace the uncomfortableness and really start to improve your ability to be more culturally sensitive and culturally aware.
Okay, Coach Colin, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because in order for people to connect with me, be open, be bold, be authentic, be uncomfortable, and be ready. If you do all those things, when we have our first conversation, because I will do the same thing, we can connect much faster. And the faster we connect, the faster we go to the core, identify what your goals are and what your vision is. To get a hold of me is very easy. You can go to my website, www.oligye.com. It's down here, www.oligye.com. That's oligye.com. You'll see a lot of information on my coaching, my training, my media. Go to booking a coaching session, and we can be on a call within a week or so. So that's how you find me. But to connect with me, be open, be ready, be authentic, and be excited, because I'm excited as well.
So the way that I end my conversations is I give hugs.
Okay, I can do that. Don't tell my wife, she won't like it. Not even hugs.
Well, if it was in real life, we could do a side hug or no hug. That's cool.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share. I really appreciate it. Hello, Coach Colin. Coach Colin. I can't talk today. Okay.